It's Thursday, and this week we are looking at relationships and how to conduct them better. Today we're looking at a big one, conflict. How do we cope well with conflict in our lives? I want to start by asking you a question. How was conflict resolved in the family that you grew up in, or amongst the adults you grew up around? That will have had a profound effect on you, on what you think about conflict, on the way you handle it, on your emotions and how you feel. So you might want to pause the video for a second and ask yourself, how did people, perhaps your parents or other significant adults in your life, how did they resolve conflict? In my life, in my childhood, conflict was rarely brought out eagerly into the open. It tended to get hidden away a bit and often was resolved when finally the emotions bubbled to the surface. And that meant that in terms of conflict, I myself am something of a hedgehog. I tend to, by nature, by instinct, roll into a ball, stick out my prickles and hope that it will go away. Other people are more like rhinos. If they see a conflict, they put their head down, charge and go straight into it. You've probably seen all kinds of ways of dealing conflict. Think of people who are upset at the way other people drive. Do they wind the window down and shout at them? Do they rage internally, maybe for hours afterwards? Driving is a very good way of spotting different methods of resolving conflict. But we, fortunately, as Christians, have one laid out for us. Jesus taught us in Matthew chapter 18. If a brother or sister sins, go and point out the fault just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. But if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. In other words, Jesus said, the first level, there are different levels of escalation in conflict, but the first level, which resolves 95% of all our human conflicts, is just to go and speak to the person who's upset you. So simple, so hard to do. Notice it doesn't say, go on social media and tell everyone what's happened. It doesn't say, go and get on the phone to your best friends and get as much sympathy as you can out of them. It doesn't say, harbour resentment against them and eventually it will go away. It just says, go and point out the fault just between the two of you. Well, how can we do that well? Well, I'm going to give you 4 little pointers that I've found very helpful in the past. They're all buttons that you might press, because I think conflict presses our buttons, doesn't it? And however mature we might like to think we are, however calm, a good conflict certainly stirs up our emotions. So the first button is pause. So many conflicts escalate out of control because people fail to stop and check their initial impulse. Press pause. If someone upsets you, don't immediately lash out. Worst of all, don't fire off an email or a text. Don't say the first thing that comes to mind. Pause. Exercise self-control. That gives you space for all of the other good things that can follow in this way of resolving conflict. The second is to press rewind. Go back over what's happened, and especially ask yourself some questions. Now, often we rewind conflict and we just go deeper and deeper into our sense of injustice. I can't believe they did that. What were they thinking? Don't they have any feelings? Don't they understand what I'm going through? Those aren't the right or helpful questions to ask. What would it feel like to stand in their shoes? How could I have handled that situation better? And for me, the best question of all, Lord, what are you teaching me through this difficult experience? Rewind and ask those. Then it's time to press play and to actually do what Jesus has commanded. Go and talk to them. The phrase that I find works best is to use this formula. When you did this, it made me feel like this. Go and show them. When you said that, it made me feel that you didn't appreciate anything that I've done. When you took that decision, it made me feel like you hadn't thought about me at all. It's a way of broaching conflict that relies on our feelings, which no one else can dispute, rather than accusations about what they should or shouldn't have done. So press pause, press rewind, press play, and obviously there's no telling how a resolution of conflict goes because it's out of our control, but our part is, as Jesus has said, to go and talk to someone, just the two of us. And then we delete. We can't delete all memories, if only we could, of the times we've been hurt, but we can, as the Bible teaches, keep no record of wrongs. That is, forgive as the Lord has forgiven us. Conflict's not easy to deal with. None of us particularly enjoys it. I think there's something wrong if someone really relishes conflict. But the truth is, life is not like a calm river that we placidly paddle our way along. It's more like a series of rapids where we're trying to keep balance when things seem very disorientating and where things are bumping us more than we'd like them to. But the truth is, you make a lot more progress in the rapids than you do in the still and calm sections of the river. And God can use conflict to accelerate our learning and growth and bring us to the places that He wants us to be in. Oh, Father, you know how often we fall out with one another and how hard dealing with conflict is. But assist us by your Spirit to obey your word and to have courage to pause, rewind, play, and delete in our relationships with each other. Amen.